This video is going to be a film study look at Chuck Clark's contribution in the Jets' 24-3 win over the Patriots in Week 3 on Thursday Night Football. He played 100% of the snaps so far for the entire season for the Jets through 3 games, had a big impact against the Patriots. Really cool for me personally to see. I was a big fan of his when he played in Baltimore, suffered a knee injury after moving over to the Jets. In fact, suffered a knee injury, an ACL, that is on the last play, I believe, of one of the organized spring activities. So very unfortunate for him to suffer an injury there. Followed him a little bit on Twitter in terms of his battle back. And to see him playing 100% of the snaps, number one, play very well against the Patriots. Now, look, the whole Jets defense played well. I did a video on Will McDonald IV early on. Multiple guys playing downhill, playing aggressive. Chuck Clark was a part of that. He had a sack. He had a forced fumble. Look, the forced fumble was just a sick leaping strip of the running back for the Patriots, Stevenson. It was almost like a reckless abandon type play, leaping over one of his teammates who was being blocked to strip Stevenson in the middle of a scrum. It's actually kind of hard to see on the film, but we'll watch it here in a moment. 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 7 tackles. Played well in coverage, if you ask me. Awesome to see as a Ravens fan, Ravens content creator, someone who will still root for Chuck Clark from afar, especially because of where he came from. It was a 6th-round pick at Virginia Tech, had a solid career there, don't get me wrong. He contributed a lot to the Ravens over the years. He had a 100 tackle season in 2022 when the Ravens had drafted Kyle Hamilton to, quote, replace him to some degree. He had nearly had a 100 sack season, I think 2 years before, 2019 or 2020. So just had a storied career at Virginia Tech. Came to Baltimore, somewhat of a local guy from Virginia, and had an impact, able to parlay that into a contract with the Jets that unfortunately got short-circuited by an ACL, and here he is all the way back. It's fun to see. Never have any idea how these stories will end over the course of a 17-game season. So when you get these opportunities, at least me, you've got to take advantage of it and try to produce a video. So generally playing to the boundary. They seem to be moving Ahmad Gardner around a little bit more, if you ask me. I'm just basing this off of the game against the Patriots. This is a 3rd and 3 in the first quarter. The Jets are up 7-0 at this point. You got an empty formation once the running back motions out of here. And I think that Chuck Clark IDs this. I think he IDs this route, that he wants to break on it, but he's not sure what else is happening in here. So for a moment, sits on it, and you can see him just ever so slightly hedged to this side. And then that is all the impetus that Jacoby Brissett needed to get the ball out. Clark breaks on it, gets there slightly too late. It's a completion, a first down, obviously, on a 3rd and 3 to Henry, Clark, and I think Adams were there on the tackle. Again, he's going to be down at the bottom side here, but you can see that Gardner has switched sides. So Gardner's into the boundary. Clark is now to the field. So there's a little bit of a field and boundary nature at times with the corners and the safeties as well. You'll see Clark into the boundary, to the field. He's quite versatile here in this game, if you ask me. Playing middle of the field free safety on this one. Happens to be a split sack with Will McDonald IV and Clemens. There's actually 3 guys there. Just showing you that on this particular snap, Clark is rolling back to center field, essentially playing middle of the field free safety in what almost looks like a cover 3. Except it's man on the outside on number 1. Clark coming downhill for a sack. This is second quarter. As you can see, the Patriots have almost reached midfield here. Halfway through the second quarter, Jets are up 14-0. And Clark is able to get a sack on a blitz. Brissett actually is throwing the ball backwards, but the refs ruled that he was in the grasp. Great timing. He was good at these things with the Ravens, too. I don't think that he had, I would say 6.5 sacks with the Ravens, something like that, but I could be wrong there. But great timing coming from the left-hand side of the offense, so away from the tight end. So they're still able to retain a corner and a safety to match up to the 2 eligible receivers to that side. Theoretically, the will linebacker could match up with the tight end, the other tight end who's lined up in the backfield, and that's what happens. So you're getting this kind of bonus element to Clark blitzing off the edge, in some ways similar to a couple of McDonald's sacks in that he came off the weak side edge. There was a play action. Quarterback's back is turned to him. Clark ends up on the top side, which is where you want to, I don't want to say this, you don't want to say you want to miss the tackle, but you want to force the quarterback to step up, to move up in the pocket and not be able to bounce outside. So first sack for Chuck Clark since 2022. Really cool I don't know about if you're a Jets fan, you may not know as much of his story as I do and other Ravens fans, and some Ravens fans are going to be upset uh, about Chuck Clark having success simply because of the way that he talked at times in 2022 with the Ravens, because the Ravens did draft Kyle Hamilton at 14. I'm not necessarily sure that the Ravens were planning on drafting Hamilton. I don't think anyone believed that he would be there. So I really don't care what Chuck Clark said. I just care that the dude is out there playing, performing. In this case, happens to be for an AFC team that perhaps the Ravens will match up with in the playoffs, which would be an interesting dynamic if you ask me. A couple of instances of him robbing three away from trips. So you got trips to the top side of the screen here. Three receivers, one to the downside. It's a defensive pass interference down here to the bottom side of the screen. It's Thornton is going to get the target deep up the left sideline. Definitely contact, warrants a DPI. But a couple of reps of Clark looking for three on like a climb or an over concept. And so basically he's just robbing or matching three from the backside. So it's a trips concept. At some point you will need help on three. In this case, it looks like they're playing man on three, so there's no work for Clark at this point. Brissett goes otherwise. Why am I showing that to you? Because later on in the game, when they brought Drake May on the field, he actually did the same thing to Drake May. Down here into the boundary, where you have three eligible receivers, a bunch set under center. It's 14-0 still in the second quarter. 1st and 10, play action concept. McDonald is going to get another one of his sacks. I think he was involved in 3 different sacks. But Clark is trying to match something coming from the other side of the field. So it is an underneath drag, and Clark is just holding here into the boundary, which is interesting in and of itself. He's looking for some type of work while everyone else is playing man. So the Jets, I think, had a great tell or a great idea on some of the things. Well, obviously, they had some information, some intel. They acted on it and played downhill. They were able to hold the Patriots to 3 points overall. Going to get a tackle on a bubble screen here. This is now moving forward, second quarter. Thereafter, the sack that you saw there, it's a 3rd and 18. He's going to get a tackle out in space. I believe it's Gibson out in space on a bubble screen to trips. Just a horizontal pass play by the Patriots that essentially functions as a run concept on a safe play. 3rd and 18, not able to get many yards. Forced fumble, I think, is sick out of all the plays I saw from this game. I mean, once the Thursday night All 22 comes out on Friday and I get an opportunity to watch it, I try to every week, especially if it's AFC teams. And in this case, it's the Patriots and the Jets. So I'd like to have some familiarity of teams that the Ravens might play later on. So you've got 2 tight ends down here to the bottom side. I believe they're both actually tight end position players, 81 and I think 85. And they're going to step out to the defensive end. So that triggers Clark downhill. He's got run blocks now. It's why so many coverages are man on one. That way it absolves the safety of having to help there. And Clark jumps over, I think he jumps over a defensive tackle and an offensive player who's blocking him and strips Stevenson in the middle of the scrum. It's kind of hard to see here. You kind of get an idea right there of him with his right arm. You can see what I think is like a forearm pad, stripping the ball out. And from the end zone angle that you're going to see in a moment, he actually has the ball in the instant between him making contact with Stevens and getting to the ground. He actually has the football when he lands on the ground. I didn't realize that we had this view. There's a great view of it right there, of him getting his hand in while landing essentially from his leap, able to strip it out. And you can see right in here, he's got the football in his hands. Beautiful play. I think Chuck Clark has something to prove. I don't know. Haven't listened to any of his statements. Just don't have the time to. But I think he's got something to prove at this point, sitting out a year and looking at the contract that he was able to sign with the Jets. He wants to take advantage of it. He wants to play well. He's a competitor, regardless of what any of us think as Ravens fans of 2022 and the way that things were between him and Hamilton, maybe, are the things he said. Chuck Clark, in my opinion, deserves our respect. So this is another example of him robbing or looking for three. They're playing man down to the single receiver side. Inside linebacker is passing this tight end off on outside leverage. So the inside linebacker is forcing the tight end to release to the inside into the middle of the field. Clark is matching up with him. And in my opinion, I don't give you all the end zone angle of this one. I think that's pretty much where Drake May was looking. Chuck Clark closes that off. Look, it's 24-3 at this point. 2 minutes left in the game, so it's inconsequential in terms of the result, the winner of the game, that is. But an example, if you ask me, of Chuck Clark being in the right place at the right time, helping out with team defense. I think he's a team player. And it's fine. I'm fine if any Ravens fans listen this long and are not of the same opinion. Was he bothered or instigated or perturbed by the Ravens drafting Hamilton? Maybe. I have no idea what went on in those spring practices after Hamilton was drafted in the first round at pick 14. All I'm concerned about is in 2024 is hopefully him playing 100% of the snaps for the Jets, playing well, seeing how far he can push this envelope. He's a guy that I root for, a guy that I like, the way he played, his story coming out of Virginia Tech, being drafted in the 6th round. If you're a Jets fan and you listen this long, first of all, thank you. Second of all, let me know what you knew or know of Chuck Clark's story, which your perception is of his play so far. I did not look at week 1 and week 2 film for him specifically. I was able to go back and grab some plays of Will McDonald IV for a film study video that I did on Saturday afternoon. In this case, I've pretty much focused for Clark on the consequential snaps when he was on the field, which is 100% of the time against the Patriots. If you think that other Jets fans would enjoy this film study, look at Chuck Clark, who's coming back from an ACL injury and I think looks active, looks hostile, and very energetic in coverage and coming downhill against the run. If you think other Jets fans would enjoy this content, my commentary and the film study plays that I showed to illustrate how he's performing, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.